Ahora sí, ya. Buenas noches. Buenas noches. Como en todo evento siempre hay fallas técnicas al final, pero bueno, las pudimos resolver rápido. Voy a empezar de una vez con los pochismos, porque es el colegio americano, manejamos los dos idiomas y bueno, hay gente que no habla inglés, hay gente que no habla español, vamos a hacer nuestro mejor esfuerzo por acomodar a todos. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight and welcome to the third annual ASF Talks. We like to say that this is an event created by alumni and for alumni, but in the past few years, the event has grown and garnered some interest outside of the school. So we now like to say that this is an event created by alumni entirely, and for anybody who really wants to be informed, who wants to be inspired, and who wants to network. So we're very much more proud now than ever of this amazingly talented community. And just to give you an example, who in the audience was here last year? ¿Quién vino el año pasado? Perdón, es que la luz está fuerte y no veo. Ah, muy bien, varios. Bueno, you may remember Julio Salazar. Julio, ¿estás por acá? Julio is stuck in Mexico City traffic, probably, because he was going to come. Anyway, Julio had a venture called Fuck Up Nights. Fuck Up Nights is all about telling people how you've massively failed. And why is this so powerful and so important? Because I guess people learn more from failure than from success, is the thesis. Last year, Fuck Up Nights was in 80 cities around the world, and today, just a year later, it's in over 150 cities. That's a 90% growth rate with a 17% month-over-month rate. Obviously, this has caught on and people have found it useful. So he also launched an initiative called the Failure Institute to help influence public policy, to help entrepreneurs who are flailing, and many other things. Enrique Gaudet, I know he's here because I saw him a while. Enrique, ¿dónde estás? Párate, no seas así. Bien, gracias Enrique. Enrique was the first student who we invited to speak, and he was a junior last year. Enrique is graduating this year. He was inspired by the event, and he founded a club called Think Different. Think Different, he and some fellow students as well. Think Different is a club that's trying to dissect the problems that Mexico's facing. And they're trying to do something about it, to take action about that. So far, they've organized 3 events. One was about breakthroughs by people in Mexico finding a cure for cancer. Another one was about the problems with Mexican education. And the third one was about an alternative take on the war on drugs. So obviously, these are all very deep, very important topics for Mexico. So thanks, Enrique. Congratulations. Finally, we have Saskia Niño de Rivera. You may remember her very impactful presentation last year. Saskia could not be with us today, but she has an NGO called Reinserta un Mexicano. Saskia was nominated recently for the Nelson Mandela Graça Machel Innovation Awards. This is a global recognition given by an NGO called Be the Change, which recognizes breakthroughs in initiatives that are having a very strong and profound social impact. Es la única mexicana este año nominada en todo el mundo. Le deseamos lo mejor. Y solo para terminar, they recognized the efforts that she's doing transforming the prison system in Mexico. A huge task. Before we begin, we want to tell you a little bit about who we are, what's the Alumni Council, what do we do. So the Alumni Council is a group of former students, obviously. Where are you all seated? Sorry. Okay, we're spread around. But, you know, we're a bunch of guys who care about the school. And basically, the Alumni Council has one goal: to unite and strengthen the ties between alumni and the broader ASF community. So there's a number of ways to do this, but the way we've chosen to do this is to create 4, 5, 6 events a year. In the last couple of years, it's basically stabilized around these events that you see up there. If you want to be a part of this, reach out to us. We always need help. So the first one is ASF Talks. We kick off the year with ASF Talks, which is this event, obviously. Then we have the Run for Education. Who's been a part of the Run for Education? Probably a number of you guys. So the cool thing about the Run for Education is that a significant portion of the income generated goes towards scholarships for people at ASF. In case you don't know, this school has over about 15 to 20% students on financial aid, and they're aiming to raise those targets. Paul, did I get the numbers right? Yeah? Somewhere around there. The point is, there's a lot more people on scholarships at this school than you would imagine. And events like these help raise those funds, as well as many other fundraising events that the school does every year. Then we have the soccer tournament, one of the favorites of the students. Who doesn't love playing soccer in Mexico? We have the Alumni Bowl, a football game. You can see the dates there. And then to wrap up the year, we have Career Day, where a lot of successful alums come as well. And they tell the kids that are about to graduate, who need to choose a major, what each major is about, and they just share their experience, and it's very helpful for them. So before we continue, just want to say we were very inspired in the TED format, and the TED format is just basically people sharing interesting things and doing interesting things, and we hope you feel the same way. So before we begin, Paul, our Executive Director for ASF, is going to address a few words to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Nico.
Gracias.
Thank you, Nico. I just want to welcome everybody on behalf of ASF. And over these past 3 years, working with the Alumni Council, seeing some of our prime examples of success and even failure, it really says a lot about our alumni. I'm convinced that our population, both current students and our alumni, can do anything they set their minds to. Tonight, you're going to see some great examples of that, and I'm so proud of what I see of our alumni on a daily basis and the grit they have. They're willing to take on challenges, and they are true leaders toward whatever they want to do. So again, I want to congratulate the Alumni Association, those that are going to speak, the wonderful art of Rafaela Freire that's in the lobby, and also some of the musical things that are going to happen. So I just want to welcome you and thank you for being here. Have a great evening.
Bueno, perfecto. Pues va a empezar. One of the things that the Alumni Council does for this event is research candidates, sift through what they've done, choose them based on impact, values, etc., a number of things. And then the actual planning and execution of the event. So the people who see on stage are not the only people involved in the organization of the event. There's a number of people, support functions, behind the scenes, and even sponsors that are going to give you the great food, the great wine, beer that you're going to drink tonight. And it's really a reflection of the collaborative environment that exists at ASF. So to kick off, most of you were able to see the art exhibition outside. Did anybody not have a chance to take a look at the artwork? Well, if you didn't, it's still going to be there after the talks end. So this year we're showcasing Rafaela Freire. She graduated in 2003. Rafaela was studying communications and working in marketing, and then she decided to pursue her passion of painting. She graduated from a university in Mexico, and then she went to Florence, to the Florence Academy of Art, where she was trained in classical painting. And since then, a whole new world opened up for her, following her passion. So this is what inspired us to choose the theme, Changing Lanes. And changing lanes is about defining your path and defying expectations. Different people do it at different points in their life. So what Rafaela told us is that this opened up a whole new world and something she truly loves and cherishes. Her artwork is now being exhibited all around the world, London, Tokyo, Mexico. Rafaela, anywhere else? Italy? Of course. Back home, okay. And we did something different this year with Alexia Camille's input. Alexia is also on the Alumni Council. Alexia, she said, hey, guys, we should really just showcase one artist. And Alexia has a background, she's a graduate in art history from Casalam in Mexico City. Then she studied at NYU. Then she entered an art education program at Christie's. She owned an art gallery. She's curated a number of exhibitions. And she really helped us out put this together. And choosing Rafaela and choosing the artwork outside goes with the theme. So I'm very sorry, it's the only thing I'm going to read tonight, but I couldn't memorize word for word, and she can say it better than I can. This is what Alexia thinks about the exhibition, and it's really going to kick off what we're going to do tonight. We, as human beings, are truly filled with endless possibilities. We are capable of changing the course of our lives in the time it takes to make one simple decision. This is what we're celebrating tonight. The doors that open to us just because we are conscious enough to recognize an opportunity when it is presented to us are endless. Freire's work celebrates this internal universe as it depicts the human form in all its splendor. It gives us the opportunity as spectators to introduce ourselves into their intimate but vast world, never closing and always opening the possibilities of our interpretation into their context. Isn't that what Changing Lanes is all about? Interpretation, power, courage, changing the world. Elements that are all depicted in Rafaela's work. So a big round of applause for Rafaela and Alexia. Thank you for that. And that finally takes us to the first speaker of the night, Alejandro Sousa. So Alex Sousa, I studied with him in high school. He was a couple years below me. We played football together, had a lot of fun. He's a great guy. He's a guy mature beyond his years. You'll see that briefly. He was a jock. Then he studied abroad. He wrote what is now a published book, Letters to Momo. And he's become somewhat of what I call a serial entrepreneur. But his business ventures have a very strong social component to them, which is what made his business model very attractive. I guess Alex can say it better than I can. So if you're ready, go ahead. Thanks.
Awesome. How's everybody doing? All right, so upon meditating on today's topic, changing lanes, define your path, defy expectations, I realized that to me, changing lanes referred to an attitude, to a mindset, and to a choice. It means an attitude of allowance, a mindset of freedom, and a choice to allow yourself the freedom to innovate. And the freedom to innovate, first and foremostly, with the way you live your own life. Now, this attitude, mindset, and eventually conscious choice weren't born overnight. They're a natural process of life itself through numerous experiences. However, everything has a starting point. And today, I can undeniably recognize that its roots were forged right here, during my formative years at the ASF. And that's because the ASF embodies this mindset beautifully, as it offers an enabling environment where tolerance, diversity, openness, and the freedom to pursue choice and opportunity are at the core of its educational philosophy. Now, the moment I let this mindset lead and dictate my lifestyle was the moment I decided to apply to college and decide what I wanted to study, and study what I wanted to study. I remember that when I was trying to decide what I wanted to study, I opened up a brochure that listed all the particular majors that our university offered, and ticking off the ones that I thought I could be interested in. When I was done, I realized that I pretty much ticked off all the majors, except the heavy maths, arts, and sciences. So clearly that exercise only helped to leave me more confused. Luckily, later that same week, a good friend of mine who was going through the exact same process told me that he was thinking about applying to Babson, a small school that offered entrepreneurship as its sole major. And that's when it all clicked. That's the moment I decided to go to Babson, and that's the moment my life as a social entrepreneur kicked off. Why? Because I realized that since my interests were so diverse, I should study something that would allow me to do something in absolutely any given area that I wanted to. At Babson, I quickly learned that entrepreneurship is not just about starting a business. Entrepreneurship is a mindset, a life attitude, and it begins the moment you decide to make a difference. I became fascinated by the stories of the entrepreneurs that I read and met, realizing that they were all slightly crazy individuals who constantly defied expectations in order to define their paths, which ultimately ended up changing the world. Now, although I was fascinated by these individuals, I still couldn't understand what it was that made entrepreneurs act and think as they did. And that's when I decided to use my thesis to explore the inner realm of entrepreneurship in order to pinpoint exactly what it was that was responsible for fueling entrepreneurial thought processes. In my thesis, I used a philosophical lens to prove that there was an essential cognitive dissonance between risk and reward innate in entrepreneurial thought processes. Basically, I learned that for entrepreneurs, the real reward was not found in starting that project or business. The real reward for entrepreneurs was found in the process of attaining exactly that. Why? Because a path of innovation forces entrepreneurs to break with an established order and create new existential meaning. When you decide to act as an entrepreneur, everything is new. There is constant change. There are no defined roles. There's little structure. And instead of order and monotony, you have spontaneous evolution. If you think about it, the same thing applies and the same mentality happens when you go on vacations. Vacations allow you to change lanes and stop being a defined you, a version that is full of schedules, meetings, appointments, etc., and start being a more dynamic you. And when that happens, you start to look at things differently. You become easily amused again. You start to see wonder and awe and amazement. And above everything else, you start to enjoy things a lot more. And that's exactly why the entrepreneurial roller coaster is so addictive and stimulating, because it makes sense existentially. Deciding to innovate is deciding to experience a dynamic explosion of being. Now, regardless of whether you consider yourselves an entrepreneur or not, I hope you can clearly see how making the choice to change lanes and to choose to allow yourself the freedom to innovate first and foremost with the way you live your own life will prove beneficial, because it will allow you to replace order with meaning and start to leave your mark on this world in a very positive way. Now, in my personal experience as an entrepreneur, changing lanes has been the only constant. In fact, most of the times there haven't been any lanes at all, and I've had to define them as I went along. Connecting to this mindset has been like proclaiming to the world, I'm okay with chaos, constant change, uncertainty, and really not knowing what I'm doing most of the time. To be honest, it's kind of like going through life looking like this dog. Very passionate and very smiling, but definitely on the verge of getting all those teeth knocked out. That mindset has led me to live in 9 countries, travel to more than 80, start 3 businesses, become a writer, a strategy consultant, political advisor, a development practitioner, and today a pizza boy. My latest venture, Pizza, is a crazy example of changing lanes, as I decided to innovate simultaneously and wholeheartedly in all areas. 7 months ago, I decided to start a social empowerment platform disguised as a pizza restaurant that would offer a new product with a new business model and an entirely new industry for me. Why a new product? Because I created the world's first blue corn pizza made out of 100% Mexican ingredients. So basically the Mexican revolution of pizza. And why a new industry? Because I had never worked in a restaurant, owned one, or cooked for a single day in my life. And why a new business model? Because Pizza is a for-profit social business that uses empowerment, not charity, to generate social change from the very beginning, without waiting to prove its concept or without generating a return on investment. The way it works, there we go. The way it works is that for every 5 slices that we sell, a 6th slice gets generated for free and delivered to homeless young adults, who then enter a program called the Root of Change. As part of this program, they can receive up to 5 slices, after which they have to volunteer. If they don't volunteer, they don't advance. Then they receive 5 more slices, and then they have to volunteer again. After that, they go through a process of rehumanization and redignification via receiving 5 benefits: a life skills training course, a haircut, a doctor's appointment, a t-shirt, and a shower. Finally, all graduates of the program receive a formal job offer to work at the pizzeria. And with this job, the graduates are able to come back to life and to society with meaning, with purpose, with a steady income, and more importantly of all, with the tools they need to become the change they care for. Today, we've delivered 1,034 slices. We've graduated 5 kids from our program, 2 of which are still working with us. And with this, you can see how the impact is real and how the movement of generating social change with every bite of a delicious slice of pizza is now a delicious reality. Now, I'd like to prove to you how harnessing this attitude of changing lanes will allow all of you to change the world. Because since you are all unique, then by default, you're all going to define a unique path. The first step towards changing the world is to recognize that you can. You have to recognize that you already are, by birth, an agent of change. That means that everything you do, say, or think has an impact. And the exact same thing goes for everything you do not do, say, or think. You have to have enough hubris to know that you can change the world, enough humility to know that you can't do it by yourself, and enough will to act. The second step towards changing the world is to discover your inner genius. That means placing self-discovery as a priority and creating optimal experiences, visceral experiences, situations, scenarios for that inner genius to flourish, and ample space and time for you two to get acquainted. In short, you must become you, uniquely you, and fully you. The third step towards changing the world is to have a big why. You need to have meaning, purpose, and significance. You have to care madly and deeply about something. If you don't have a big why, nobody's going to believe in you, not even yourself. And once you have that big why, you have to strengthen it with discipline and with perseverance, because what all 3 of these have in common is that they're fueled by passion. Why is passion with meaning. Discipline is passion with structure. And perseverance is passion with faith. But none of this means absolutely anything if you don't actually do something about it. The only luxury that you can never grant yourself is the luxury of not trying. You have to remember that the only thing that failure and success have in common is that someone somewhere stood up and tried. So the next time you find yourselves guilty of existential procrastination, thinking to yourselves, I can do this tomorrow, next month, next year, just remember that life's short, that we only live once, and that yes, indeed, we're all going to die. You have to stop making excuses, because today is the only moment that exists. Life is about context. We blink, and there goes the opportunity. But one of the most beautiful aspects of life is that lanes are changing constantly. As a species, we need to adapt in order to survive. So if you find yourself doing something and suddenly decide it's not the right path anymore, make a new decision and change lanes again. And whatever lane you find yourself on, allow yourselves to enjoy it. The virtue of enjoyment is a decision that only you can grant yourself. So today, allow yourselves the freedom to innovate. And with a big smile on your face, go forth and change the world. Thank you.
If there's any football fans out there, you'll understand what I'm going to say. That's my quarterback. Alex was my quarterback. Guicho was also my quarterback. There's a lot of talent at the school. We really like the aspect of, at the council, when we were sifting through this, the intersection between, pro-business and pro-social entrepreneurship. It's possible. Very interesting. Thank you, Alex, for sharing that. Also something I'm going to say in English and Spanish. Mexico is a country that needs a lot of entrepreneurship. A huge amount of the population, almost 40%, is very young. And the moment that this part of the population starts hitting the labor market, there's going to be much, much less jobs, good jobs, than people needing them. So the only way to cure that is to create them. So that's why we're very passionate about entrepreneurship at the council. Entonces voy a repetir esa parte en español. Perdón para los que sea repetitivo, pero México tiene una crisis de emprendimiento. Yo siento que es un tema generacional que está dando la vuelta, pero el bono demográfico ayuda a mediano plazo, pero no ayuda porque toda esa gente, cuando esté buscando buenos trabajos y le peguen al mercado, no va a haber suficiente chamba para todos. Y la única manera es crearla, ¿no? Entonces es un tema que nos apasiona y queremos empujar en el council. Bueno, continuando. We're going to be doing some recognitions because there's a lot of people involved in this event, and like I said, it's fully sponsored by alumni. So right now we want to take a time to recognize Rodrigo Gutierrez, who is also a member of the Alumni Council. He provided a lot of the wooden seating for the cocktail. Sofía Gómez Díaz Barreiro, ¿estás por ahí? Perdón, voy a dejar de hacer así con la mano, es que está fuerte la luz. Sofía tiene una agencia de publicidad, se llama Sacapuntas Ideas con Filo. Great name, great name. She helped us promoting the event and the whole visual aspect around it, the strategy. Thank you very much. Christian Hasig, a classmate of mine. Christian did the awesome video which we kicked off the event tonight. We also want to thank Daniela Escalante, Andrés Barrios from Nubler Media covering the event. Eso, Dani. Dani fue participante del primer ASF Talks, una super plática. Para quien la quiera ver, todo está en el canal de YouTube del colegio. Everything, all the previous talks are in ASF Mexico City YouTube channel. Y Arturo Martinez from the year 2000. Arturo is putting on the beats for tonight that we're all going to dance to a little bit later. So thank you for that. So leading me to introduce our next speakers. They are both seniors at school. So like last year, we had a great experience with Enrique. And this year, we found two gems, Casana and Sarah. In a nutshell, what brings them here today is one of the things that makes this school great. This is a school that teaches you how to reason, how to think for yourself, how to form your own opinions, and how to back up what you say. It's not a school that teaches you how to memorize things. So they had a project this year in a class which Sarah's going to mention briefly, but their final project was Plan Your Life. And that was a class of existential literature, and basically they both have very different backgrounds, and they formed this way of how they want to live their life. It was very inspiring to the committee looking at their outline. And basically, they're going to share with us how they're choosing to live their life without borders, without boundaries. So let's welcome them on stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I hope you guys are all having a good evening. My name is Sarah Hatch.
And I'm Kazana Wynn. We're both here seniors at ASF. And now you're probably wondering, what can two 17-year-old girls tell you that you don't know about life already?
Well, this last semester, we had the opportunity to study existentialism. And in that class, we were given a set of authentic life skills that we think, when applied in our lives, can really help us all live authentically. So the first is to be inspired by others, but don't blindly follow. We're each given a set of circumstances, and we're all different, and they're building blocks, and it's up to us to take those building blocks and form a life that we feel comfortable living.
During this time, you will meet a variety amount of people who will inspire you. They could be a mentor, an idol, a teacher, a friend, family. And it's important, though, even though it may seem easy to follow after their footsteps, to draw the inspiration they give you and become the person you want to be rather than becoming unoriginal.
It's important to keep that in mind, too, because we inspire others greatly, and it's important that we always strive to be a positive influence in the lives of those around us.
For me, I had the wonderful opportunity to grow up in a multitude of different countries, in Vietnam, to the US, back to India, and then to now Mexico. In this time, I have worked with amazing people, from politicians to best-selling authors to fellow travelers and global friends. Now, they've all taught me a lesson that not one single person could teach me. And I've had to learn how to take what they were teaching me and sculpt who I am today. And I continue to learn from them every single day. The second life lesson is view yourself and your suffering from a bird's eye view. It's human to see an obstacle or a problem and blow it out of proportion.
It's important that when we're faced with challenges that we take a step back and we can fully evaluate the situation and analyze it for what it is, viewing all aspects and even possible solutions.
And now, also you have to find humility in your suffering, as hard as it may seem. And you have to take it all in and learn how to grow through the obstacle rather than get through it.
I learned this life skill firsthand when, just a little over a year ago, I found out that not only would I be moving to a new school, but a new country for my senior year. And I completely dreaded this move. But as I look back on my year so far, I can see that it's been filled with mountains and valleys, but more mountains, because I've utilized this life skill. I've taken a step back and I've seen the experiences that I've been able to have, the friends that I've made, and the relationships that I've strengthened with my family and with God, and I wouldn't change a thing. The next life skill we're going to talk about is value each breath. And in our lives, it's important for us to not only focus on the big events, but the small things too, and find joy in the entire journey.
We have to take the immense happiness, the unbearable pain, and everything in between as a gift. Now, I learned this life skill a little over a year ago when I went through one of the hardest moments of my entire life. I had just received the news that one of my best friends, Chad, had died. It hit me that the boy who used to tease me about the horrid bangs I wore in 6th grade and brought me smoothies when I was in tears and walked me to and from school for years was gone. With his death came evaluation and reminiscence. In evaluation, I realized that every moment I spent with Chad, I was so excited about what the next thing we were going to do, where we were going to go, and how we were going to do it. And I skipped over all the small stuff that now I cherish deeply. Now, when Chad passed away, we were in the middle of a fight, which now seems greatly silly. And so, I urge you to value each breath in every aspect of your life, because life is there one moment and gone the next. Our last and final life skill is be mindful, and it tag teams with value each breath. We have to take in everything that life has to offer. We have to learn how to be present and take moments to be grateful.
As we do this, I can promise, because I've learned firsthand, that we will truly feel like we're living our lives, that we're in control of every moment, and that we'll be happier than we've ever been before. I did a little experiment last year when I set a goal to live my life with more intention. And something that helped me achieve my goal was a ridiculous trend called the 100 Happy Day Challenge. So for 100 days, I posted something on social media that made me happy or that I was thankful for. And while it seemed ridiculous at the beginning, by the end I fell in love with the idea and I ended up doing the challenge 2 more times. But what I love about this idea is that it gave me an opportunity to reflect on each day and find something in that day. I didn't have a big event every day, but something that made me happy or something that I was thankful for. And it helped me realize just how beautiful my simple life is. And sometimes it can honestly be so hard to find the small things in life to be excited about.
And that's perfectly human. But finding the small things doesn't mean you have to search for it everywhere. It may just be noticing the sky or taking a few moments with family. Lastly.
Okay, so now we invite you to try a challenge called the Body, Heart, and Mind Challenge.
I first learned of this challenge when I suffered from severe anxiety. And it's helped me become more in touch with myself and how I'm feeling constantly. So take a moment to close your eyes. Now, notice your heartbeat.
Is it fast or is it slow?
Take a moment to notice your breathing. Now, move to your mind.
Are there 1,000 thoughts zipping through your head or none at all?
And lastly, take a moment to notice how your body feels. Is it clenched or are you relaxed? Take one more moment and now open your eyes.
We believe that this challenge honestly can change your life. The most important thing for us is to be in tune with how we feel, and that challenge does exactly that. So ultimately, life is a mess, and we are often thrown things that we don't understand, what's happening, but the purpose of our lives is to find meaning in this mess, right? Whether that's through a higher power, our family, our friends, mentors,
or even yourself. So don't be afraid to break the rules, break the limits that you or others have set for you. So be inspired by others, but do not blindly follow.
View yourself and your suffering from a bird's eye view.
Value each breath.
And be mindful.
We hope you utilize these skills to help live a life, to take risks.
Be courageous.
Be kind.
And ultimately, live a life without boundaries.
A life you dream of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, that was great. Thank you, it was awesome. I'm inspired. Pretty wise words for 2 seniors. Do you agree? Yeah? This is the longest recognition section because you guys like to eat and you like to drink. So we have a lot of people we need to thank. First of all, Bobby Craig, 3rd year in a row that he's helping us out. Thank you so, so much. Who's familiar with Operador Abajo de la Tintorera? A few of you. Who's familiar with Porco Rosso? Punta Arena. Tíos, Padrinos, Café Torino. They're all the same. It's Operador Abajo de la Tintorera. So now you're like, oh yes, dinner's going to be really good. Not one of those cocktails. Alejandra Rico is going to provide sweets and the best desserts. You're going to love them. Also, she has some baked goods for us. Now, as to the drinks, Christopher Mir, 2nd year in a row, he is helping us with this mezcal. Chris, I don't know if you're around, but thank you. Alejandro Diez Barroso with Cerveza Dila and Hércules. And finally, Montechanic. Who's had Montechanic before? Marco Gel, Ricardo Gel. They're providing the wine tonight. Thank you very much. Finally, we have Linda Lamillo from Bodega Verde. And we have Buna for the second year in a row as well. It's great, great coffee. You guys really should try what Buna has. They have these crazy combinations. It's really, really good. Thank you guys so much. You guys can read the names up there. Thanks. Our next presenter probably doesn't need an introduction. Who can tell me en inglés o en español qué hacía Sergio en los pasillos? Cuando dice el Bayo que Sergio cantaba, no es que un día estaba cantando. Sergio cantaba en los pasillos. Lo oías venir. Ahí viene Sergio y hay unos más, ahí viene Sergio, bien. Hay una historia muy chistosa. Sorry for the guys that don't speak Spanish, but I have to make this intro in Spanish. Sergio en secundaria y prepa iba a todos los shows de Gloria Trevi, a todos. Se sentaba ahí, ¿no? Entonces, pues de repente la Trevi, después de 20, te dice, ¿quién es este güey? Perdón, pero... No, pues y estaba ahí sentado en primera fila todos los shows, no se los perdía. Entonces, no, pues oye, y un día se acercó, oye, ¿quién eres, Sergio? No, pues un fan. No, pues gracias. Ahora Sergio es el productor exclusivo de Gloria Trevi. A todos sus shows en todo México. So basically what I said was that Sergio was a huge fan of an artist, and he was very passionate about theater, about music. He was singing in the hallways every single day, and then he became the exclusive producer for all of the shows of this artist. I mean, I don't want to delay the introduction. This guy is amazing. And
Querido. Gracias.
Gracias.
Thanks so much. Hi, how are you? I'm so happy to be here with so many friends. Thanks. Let me tell you something. I don't have much prepared. I'm so happy. I don't know what to say. I see the presentations of my friends. This is a very important week for me professionally. And like the cereza of the pastel arrives this invitation that I was not able to say no. So, pues I'm like nervous for the first time. Many times when I was in class of Miss Fabregat, Miss Aguilar, I was very good to talk, but now I really doesn't know what to say. Today in the morning, I told my guy of the design, tell me a presentation of what I have done, and let me see how do I start. But let me tell you that the first thing, something that I have learned is that I should start from the beginning. And not only here. The story of what I do I can never start my story if I don't start by talking about the ASF. For me, it's very important saying that the ASF let me always do and accept me how I was, like they say, I was singing through the halls. And I promise you, I saw in the face of so many people, what is this guy doing? He's not letting me concentrate for the exam. And sometimes they were telling me, holy shit. And many times they were telling me, oh, you are so amazing. But never I receive anything, un regaño, nothing from Mr. Williams, that I see him here and still la emociona a flor de piel. Mr. Barney, en paz descanse, que nunca, so many teachers arrive with him and tell him, this guy doesn't let us study. He's singing without volume. And they never tell me something. They always let me be how I was. And I think that has been something so important for, I don't like to name it, sometimes they tell me, it's because you have become successful. Some of my dreams have become true, and I have been very lucky because of that. And one of the things that I've learned the most is to be happy, to always be happy. And that has been one of my most probably secrets of my profession, and that I have always from what I have achieved is that I'm always enjoying what I'm doing. I'm always playing how I was playing in the halls, I was playing in the class. And now that I work, I play, I do what I like the most. I don't think I'm working. And like they always let me how I was, I'm going to continue in Spanish, the second part of the presentation. Entonces, les estaba diciendo, sí, ya me voy a quedar cómodo y voy a seguir por tal. Entonces, bueno, el principio yo siento que fue aquí en el Americano, mientras cantaba en los talent shows y hacía imitaciones de artistas y todo el mundo me tachaba como loco. Lo que sí es que tenía yo muy claro a lo que me quería dedicar. Yo dije, yo quiero producir teatro, yo quiero producir artistas. Yo mientras estaba la maestra hablando de algo que me aburría, hacía sketches de mis obras de teatro y dije, yo voy a traer a esta actriz y a este actor y los voy a poner en teatro. Y ahora que se vuelve real, que abro la cartelera y veo tantas obras y que puedo en una de las carteleras con más orgullo decir que México tiene una cartelera importantísima, que muchas las produzca yo, les prometo que no me cae el 20. Como dice, el Gloria Trevi para mí era mi máximo, iba a sus conciertos y que ahora yo la pueda vender en el país, hacer los shows. Este fin de semana, por decir algo, hizo el show más, la primera vez que una artista mexicana agota la Arena Ciudad de México con 19,000 personas. Gracias. Y digo, lo hice yo lo organicé, no lo puedo creer. De verdad, yo siento que estoy jugando. Entonces, pues voy a más o menos contarles. Cuando me dicen cambiar caminos, changing lanes, pues yo siempre supe y lo tuve muy claro. Luego, sí hubo una vez que medio dudé, me metí a la universidad, aquí nos trajeron y nos hicieron una capacitación, me dijeron, tú te tienes que meter a comunicación. Y me metí a comunicación a la Universidad Ibero, y literal, mis tareas eran leer a García Márquez, que era lo que yo leía aquí. Y pues a mí me fascina García Márquez, pero pues lo leía más cuando voy al baño. No iba a la universidad a agarrar a leer a García Márquez. Entonces, yo comunicaciones saqué 9.9 de promedio, se los prometo en la Ibero, y acabo el semestre y digo, oigan, pero por aquí no va lo que a mí me gusta. Yo aquí hago pues, lo que hago por hobby. Y agarré y me dijo, no, te cambiamos al tercer semestre. Entonces ya me fui a administración, fue muy feliz y es la única vez en que a lo mejor conecté ideas, como dice el tema de la presentación, y cambié de rumbo y me fui a administración, que me sirvió bastante para el tema. Pero bueno, yo cuando estaba en estos pasillos yo tenía muy claro que yo quería a lo que me quería dedicar. Bueno, pues empecé, lo primero laboral que hice fue en las relaciones públicas. Aquí yo era amigo de todas las maestras y todo el mundo pensaba que yo era por hacerles la barba, que las invitaba a comer, que me las llevaba a cenar, las invitaba al teatro. Me decían, de verdad, ¿les tiras el pedo a las maestras? ¿Te gustan las mayores? Y no, para nada, nunca fue porque me regalaran medio punto. Hasta el día de hoy mis mejores amigas son gente de 70 años, de 80, gente como Silvia Pinal, como Angélica María, como gente que hasta el día de hoy siguen siendo mis mejores amigas, porque les aprendo tanto, yo a estas maestras les aprendí tanto, y a mujeres exitosas, alguien que tiene el don de compartir, y de ellas he aprendido, y eso lo llevo a la vida profesional, y ese ha sido pues como repito, el secreto para poder serlo. Nunca mentir y ser siempre yo, ser honesto y actuar con verdad. Nunca fue por ganarme una calificación, se los prometo. Entonces, en las relaciones públicas, ¿qué era esto? Conocí a dos de mis mejores amigas que están aquí esta noche, que son Claudia Reta y Paulina Díaz Ordaz, y yo era con un aplauso para ellas, que las amo. Y a mí, de pronto, iba mucho a un antro y me gastaba muchísimo en alcohol. Yo era un party animal y de pronto las conozco y me dicen, oye, ¿y si nos ayudas a traer gente a este antro? Era un antro donde yo ya de por sí iba y me gastaba tal. Me dice, no vas a volver a pagar una copa y además te vamos a dar tanto al mes. Y yo decía, ay, no lo puedo creer. Bueno, pues así empezó mi vida en la relación pública. Me pagaron por hacer algo que yo al día de hoy sigo pagando por hacer. Yo me voy de viaje, llego al bar y le invito a chupes a todos, ¿sí? Y de pronto nuestra agencia se convirtió en la número 1 en México en convocatoria y fue gracias a ella que empecé a meterme al espectáculo. Luego invitábamos tantos artistas a los eventos y tal y tal. Y luego dije, ¿cómo puedo juntar esto con lo que más amo, que es el teatro? Entonces empecé a hacer noches en específicas obras que no eran mías y empezaron a llenar los teatros con pura publicidad mía en mails. Y en eso yo agarro y digo, ¿y por qué no ya produzco mi primera obra? Y yo, gracias a las relaciones públicas y a que me gusta ser amigo de las señoras mayores exitosas, conocí a Tina Galindo, que es la directora del teatro más importante en México, que es el Teatro de los Insurgentes, pero es un teatro que no se renta, es un teatro que ella produce obras y tal. Yo agarro, le hablo a Juan Ferrara, que era amigo de Angélica María, le digo, oye, hay una obra que yo vi en Argentina, ¿qué tal? Compro los derechos. Todo el mundo cree que mi papá me ayudó a producirla. Yo me había ganado dinero con las relaciones públicas porque la verdad nos había ido muy bien. Y agarré y de la nada empecé a juntar y a juntar. Y en eso Diego Luna se rompe un brazo y el Teatro de los Insurgentes no tiene obra. Y con mi primera obra logro llegar al teatro que todos los productores sueñan con algún día pisar. Con mi primera sueño que me puse, que fue Filomena Marturano. Y así estuvo, íbamos por 6 semanas, nos quedamos 400 funciones, fuimos a 53 plazas en todo el país y pues me las querían comprar y yo decía, ay, me aviento. Y déjenme decirles que los primeros que me ayudaron con el dinero que faltaba fueron 2 amigos que también conocí en el ASF. Mis grandes amigos, Mauricio Quintana, que también está aquí esta noche, a quien pido un aplauso. Y Paul Sarfati, que sin saber si yo era bueno o malo, creyeron en mí, pusieron y dijeron, vamos a abrirla. Bueno, Mauricio acabó hasta actuando cuando se nos salió un actor y estuvo maravilloso, yo le he ido en la actuación, genial. Y bueno, Filomena fue mi primera obra, a partir de ahí vinieron obras que hoy están en cartelera, hoy les puedo decir que todas las obras que trabajan en Jueves en México, afortunadamente, y no digan mucho, pero son mías, porque los demás solo están fines de semana, que son Como quieras, perro, ámame, un thriller de Hitchcock, que es Extraños en un tren, y bueno, varias obras con las que he podido tocar y llegar a familias. Siempre he pensado, ¿por qué producir esta obra? Nunca es, oye, esta me va a dejar más dinero, esta siento que me tengo que ir a un mercado que les puede interesar. No puedo dejar de hablar de la obra más importante que he producido, que se llama Made in Mexico, que me enseñaron, que es una obra que habla del amor a México, del valor a la tierra, y acaba de cumplir 1000 funciones. Nos vamos a Estados Unidos de gira, gracias a Dios ha sido un gran éxito. En cuanto a materia de espectáculos, pues Marisela, que era una cantante que estaba olvidada en Los Ángeles, se me ocurrió traerla, con la que me fue afortunadamente muy bien y sigo manejándola hoy en día. Y bueno, el tema más importante de lo que puedo decir es Gloria Trevi, con el que me presentaron, que sí es un gran orgullo para mí decir que ahorita soy la cara, a lo mejor para poder buquearla en México, hago todos sus eventos y es un sueño muy grande hecho realidad. Pero ese sueño nació desde que estaba yo tomando nota en los pasillos y en las clases desde elementary hasta que me gradué de aquí. Estos son algunos de los proyectos que tengo este año. Empiezo otra obra con Rebecca Jones que se llama Una vez más, Variaciones enigmáticas, que es un thriller, y bueno, y sigo con Gloria Trevi por todo el país. Pero con lo que quisiera terminar esta presentación es agarrar y decirles gracias a todos los maestros, a toda la gente que confió, que me dejó ser, que nunca pretendieron que fuera diferente. Y creo que a todos los alumnos que están hoy en día aquí, que no sé si muchos están aquí hoy, es decirles, aprovechen que están en una escuela donde los dejan volar. La única manera de volar es nunca creértelo, nunca pensar que ya la hiciste y siempre creer que donde estás es apenas el comienzo. Yo siento que estoy empezando a jugar. Tengo 34 años y créanme que espero me lo van a invitar en muchos. Para mí es un orgullo ser de ASF y creo que ya me pasé. Muchas gracias. Buenas noches. Gracias.
Les dije que no necesitaba introducción. Y si no lo conocían, nunca se les va a olvidar. En este momento, voy a cambiar de inglés. Bueno, primero voy a aprovechar de mi posición ahorita para hacer un shout out. Filomena Marturano, ¿quién que esté aquí actuó en esa obra? ¿Cuántas manos? 2, 3, varios, bien, Huicho, mi hermano Rodrigo, les dije que iba a abusar de mi posición el día de hoy para hacer un shout out, pero bueno, en fin, una obra muy buena y yo creo que en México es una cultura que puede apreciar más el teatro y yo creo que hay muchísimo talento en este país, muy buenas obras, entonces bueno, apoyemos la causa. Para no demorarlos mucho, our next recognition is for the Alumni Council, so it's a bit of a boomerang throw, but Huicho, Mauricio Argüelles, our council president, Janet Huerta, León Mericanskas, who couldn't be with us tonight, unfortunately, Alexia Camil, who I mentioned, Daniela Escalante as well, Rodrigo Gutierrez, Claudia Debler, myself. Thank you guys so much. I mean, these things really could not happen without the team effort and the time that you guys put in from your very, very, very busy schedules. So, why don't we take a moment, everybody just stand up for a second. Just stand up, take a break. We've been sitting for a while. We're almost done, just stand up with your arms. Go, la, 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 la. A las de 3, 1, 2, 3. No, ya se durmieron, por eso los paré. Ya, bueno, perfecto, muchas gracias. Se pueden sentar. The following act is also a student, amazingly talented. She is a junior at the school, Isabel Contreras. Isabel is a junior, that's 11th grade. It's her 5th year in the drama club. She's had a starring role in Les Miserables. Anybody who saw Les Miserables a couple years ago? Amazing production. She was also the witch of Into the Woods. For those of you who know, yeah, for those of you who know theater, those are two of the hardest roles to play. So, amazing talent again, and she's going to sing for you tonight. Actually, change of mind. I'm not going to tell you what she's going to sing. I'll let you guys figure it out. Thanks.
She got a smile that seems to me reminds me of childhood memories when everything was as fresh as a bright blue sky. Now and then when I see her face, she takes me to that special place. And if I stand too long, I probably break down and cry. Oh, 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 sweet child of mine. Oh, 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 sweet love of mine. She got eyes of the bluest skies, as if they thought of rain. I hate to look into those eyes and see an ounce of pain. Her hair reminds me of a warm, safe place where as a child I'd hide to pray for the thunder and the rain to quietly pass me by. Oh, 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 sweet child of mine. Oh, 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 sweet love of mine. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 sweet child of mine. Oh, sweet love of mine. Where do we go? Where do we go? Where do we go now? Where do we go? Where do we go? Where do we go now? Now, 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 now? Where do we go? Where do we go? Where do we go now, sweet child? Where do we go? Where do we go? Where do we go now? Sweet child of
Sergio. See, I have a confession to make. I love watching those X Factor auditions and American Idol, and I spend hours on YouTube sometimes watching them. And that reminded me, and actually friends were over at the house, Gabriela and Trisha, they may be in the audience, and with my wife, and we're watching, and whenever somebody comes on stage and has like this perfect, amazing performance, Simon Cowell looks up and goes like, and that's like the cha-ching face, like, I'm going to make billions. That's what Sergio was doing right now. Thank you very much, Isa. So for the next presentation, Jero Prieto and Ana Lagos from 2005 and 2006.
Thanks.
At the council, we've been trying to get them for 3 years since the first event. We really love their project. They were studying their MBA at Kellogg, which is why they couldn't come. And just 2 months ago, they had their first daughter, Eva. And they're here with us, so we're very, very grateful. You've got, obviously, important things going on at home, so thank you for joining us. Jero works in real estate at the Escuela Bancaria Comercial, and Ana works in digital banking at Monex. But this passion project that Jero started and Ana has been a very important part of has really, really, really taken off. I don't want to steal their thunder. I'll let them tell you about it. But we're very happy that they're here.
I think our slide is not up. There we go. Thank you. Has anyone here ever received a spam email offering you free prizes, a cruise to the Caribbean, or thousands of dollars? Please raise your hand. Wow. So let me tell you about a special kind of email I received several years ago. A supposed French company offered me $15,000 for my website domain, pelagiclife.com. This was when $15,000 was my yearly income, and Pelagic Life was nothing more than a lonely website with 3 amateur underwater videos. I was really excited. Turned out that I went against my ASF critical thinking skills, and I believed something that was too good to be true. I never received a penny. Turned out the French company was my fellow school instructor and cousin, Lalo. Lalo was the first person to join me in this crusade, and this email hoax was his funny way of telling me he wanted to be a part of it. Together, we formed a group of several individuals with varying professions: lawyers, consultants, entrepreneurs, producers, all with one thing in common: a deep passion towards the ocean. For 5 years, during our spare time, we explored and documented the Mexican Ocean, and this is what we found.
So during our exploration, we found this amazing and unique marine wildlife phenomenon. So what you saw in this video is what we refer to and call pelagic life. Unfortunately, we also found an alarming reality that threatens this very fragile ecosystem. But before we go into the specifics of what happens in Mexico, let me tell you a little bit about what goes on globally in our oceans. Every year, global fisheries extract 90 million metric tons of wildlife from our oceans. This number is equivalent to the population of China in terms of biomass. So imagine, every year we are extracting the Chinese population from our oceans. In order to make this happen, fisheries use super trawlers that have these very big nets that fit about 13 jumbo jets into them. And they use these in order to find and extract and process this seafood. And they do it with military precision. But in order to make this profitable, governments worldwide have to inject around $16 billion in subsidies. In only 55 years, humans have managed to wipe out 90% of the ocean's top predators. In a nutshell, we are rapidly decimating the last wilderness frontier on Earth, the open ocean. This is a massive and overwhelming problem. And we at Pelagic Life have the philosophy that in order to start solving this problem, we must attack it locally and one step at a time.
First, let's look at supply, fishing. 2011, we discovered a crude shark fishing operation in Bahía Magdalena, a small town in Baja California. It took us 2 years to win the trust of Eric, the shark fisherman portrayed in this photograph. And we won him over by doing something crazy. We offered Eric to buy any free shark that was still hooked in his lines. On average, we paid 200 pesos per shark. And in return, we jumped in the water and freed the sharks with our bare hands. We managed to free 37 sharks. And although we knew this was not a permanent solution, it was the building blocks to test our hypotheses. How do we protect the sharks and the local community? We needed to find an alternative income for the shark fishermen that was higher and safer. We had heard that tourism was a solution, and we had seen it in other places in Mexico, and we thought that Bahía Magdalena could work. 2013, we received a grant from Semarnat with the purpose of finding out if and how shark fishing could be replaced with tourism. After a year-long study and with positive results, we decided to put the theory to test. 2015, we were able to take 48 tourists that were paying around 10,000 pesos. This resulted in about 500,000 pesos that stayed in the local community. Today, the sharks are worth more alive than dead. And now the shark fishermen are looking for us to help them take advantage of this opportunity. The pre-season hasn't even started, and we already have 42 tourists signed up. We believe, we believe tourism will slowly replace shark fishing in Bahía Magdalena. But let's be realistic. 50, 100, or 200 sharks in one small location in Baja California isn't going to change the fate of sharks nationally. That is why we're actively looking for new areas in Mexico to replicate the Bahía Magdalena model. In addition, we're promoting 31 operators in 16 different locations in Mexico, all that are focused on sustainable tourism with sharks, marlins, sailfish, mantas, and even crocodiles. We even produced a documentary film to create awareness and promote these locations. So, replace overfishing with tourism to make the species be worth more alive. But this is only a couple thousand enthusiasts each year, and this is not going to change the fate of our oceans.
We have to look at the other side of the story. Now let's look at the demand side, consumption. By 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in our oceans. Why should we care about this? What happens is that fish are consuming these toxins and plastics that we are throwing into our oceans. The top predatory fish, such as the ones that are at the top of the food chain, such as shark, marlin, bluefin tuna, they are the ones that are accumulating all of these toxins into their body, and that's what we end up eating. This slide shows the amount of mercury that certain species of fish that we eat have concentrated in their bodies. And as you can notice, the large predators that not only have the largest amount of mercury concentration in their bodies, but they are also the ones that take the longest to reproduce and have the highest likelihood of being worth more alive than dead through ecotourism, such as the story that we just heard about the sharks. So how do we prevent this unsustainable consumption of seafood that is also damaging to our health? We create the first mobile app tailored to Mexican species, with local names and with local information on fishing catches and practices. Our mobile seafood app is scheduled to launch this year, and hopefully it will empower us to consume in a more sustainable and healthier way. We plan to launch, thank you. We plan to launch this app in collaboration with government agencies, other nonprofits, chefs, restaurants, and other seafood providers who are willing to offer healthier, tastier, and more sustainable seafood. So even if you don't like being in the ocean, there is always a way in which you can contribute to protect the marine wildlife in Mexico. And that is simply by being aware of what you eat and making the responsible choice.
Today, Anna and myself spend most of our time taking care of our 2-month-old daughter, Eva. This year, we finished an MBA, and Anna worked in digital banking. I'm geared towards real estate and higher education. So personally, we don't believe you have to drop your personal or professional life to create an impact in your community. For me, changing lanes was about believing in the potential of a fake email my jealous cousin sent me many years ago. It didn't seem like much at the time, but with passion and diligent work, we were able to do something. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can tell why we love the project. Truly a passion project that turned into an award-winning documentary. I mean, Jero mentioned it briefly, but there's a lot of people besides Jero Nan as well, people in this room who actually made that happen. That documentary is on Netflix. You guys can check it out anytime you want. Mexico Pelágico. It's really good. I mean, Jero's a humble guy. He got recognized by the San Francisco International Ocean Film Festival as Best Director. He won an award for that, so don't take it from me. Anna was invited to give a TEDx talk about this back in 2013. The project was gaining traction, but it's scaled to the point where it's a fully run NGO. Jerónimo Pérez Correa, are you here? Yeah, Jero is the director of the NGO, so also an alum, ASF. And it's just amazing how a passion project can actually transform the economy of a local community, promote saving the marine wildlife of Mexico. So we're really proud. Thank you, guys. Thanks. Yeah, they deserve it. Just to wrap up, a few more recognitions. We want to thank the school for helping us make this event possible. I mean, we couldn't do it without this venue. So thank you very much to the school. Mr. Williams, who's a big promoter of the project, of this event. The Institutional Advancement Office, Alejandra Naranjo, who leads it, she couldn't be here today. Maria Jose Martinez, invaluable for this project. She works here permanently. A big round of applause. Yeah. All the faculty and staff involved, off the top of my head, Palo, Teru, behind the scenes. Teru, ven. She's the mastermind behind the whole production. So, Teru, gracias. Hugo que está ahí arriba, muchas gracias. Iván y José Fernando, que son estudiantes, they're students, they founded something called the Tech Club. Están detrás de toda la producción también, muchísimas gracias. Y una disculpa, Mauricio, que está por ahí también, y si alguien se me olvidó, perdónenme, pero en serio, muchas gracias por darnos esta plataforma. We're about to wrap up. We think this is a platform that, can change the world. There's people doing very interesting projects, and people from the school need to recognize the value of their network. And the people that are here, I mean, talking to the guys, some of them don't even know each other. So if you're in the school, if you're in this network, tap in and make the most out of it. All right, so I'm done with my applauses. Very proud of them, though. The last speech of the night is Mr. Damien Fraser. He is the head of UBS Mexico. Damien has a very interesting story. He is a true lane changer as well. I won't go into too much detail, but he had a very important position as a journalist in the Financial Times. He switched into banking. He's been in banking for a while. He has a bachelor's in philosophy, economics, and politics from Oxford University. He then has an MPA from Harvard, a Master in Public Administration from the Kennedy School, and he's also a chartered financial analyst, is the correct term, maybe? Yeah? Thanks. CFA, that's an extremely difficult certification to get. He manages 180 people at the Mexico office, and he's also an ASF dad of 3. So we're very happy that Damien accepted to be here tonight. Without further ado, we'll let him take the stage. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. As Nicolas said, I have several ties to the American school. I have 3 daughters who have been at the American school, one who just graduated last year, Anna Sophia Fraser. In fact, we called her Anna Sophia Fraser. So that all the American school T-shirts would belong to her. And she still wears them. I have Oriana somewhere over there. Oriana? She's probably quite embarrassed at this moment. And she's my second child, and Miranda, who's a freshman in high school. And I have to say, based on what I've heard this evening, I'm so happy that my children went to or are at the American school. I'm so impressed and a little bit intimidated that I have to speak after these accomplished people. I'm not really that qualified, in fact, to speak about changing lanes, because nothing much has changed in my life in the last 18 years. I live in the same house as I did 18 years ago. I work for exactly the same company. I have the same commute. Even my dog is called Hector, and my previous dog was called Hector. So so there's Oriana, in case you don't recognize her, and there's Hector 1 and Hector 2 and Hector 1 again. So I haven't done very good at changing, but a long time ago I did do a few changes, and maybe that's why I was asked to speak today, and 3 in particular. My first change, as we heard from Nicolas, is that I changed careers. I changed from journalism to banking. When I was a journalist, I came to Mexico and everything was pretty good. Mexico had just privatized Telmex, they were privatizing the banks, they were negotiating the free trade agreement with the United States, the stock market was booming, the currency was strong, people were very, very enthusiastic. I arrived and everything more or less went wrong. So Colosio got assassinated, there was the Chiapas rebellion, which I got to cover as well. There was obviously the collapse of the peso, and many other things went wrong. So I got a pretty interesting time, but then I changed to banking, and I'll go into that in a moment. And then more or less simultaneous to this, I changed countries. I had a varied life in England, as you can see. At one stage, I was a punk rocker at the top. And then I became very upwardly mobile socially and hung out with people in top hats and the Queen. And I changed to Mexico, and I didn't just change country, but at this point, I changed friends, I changed family. Most of my friends are now Mexican. My family is obviously Mexican. And as you can see, I became a charo. The third change is that even though nothing has actually changed in my life, the things that I do have changed. So Mexico is not comparable at all to the country it was 20 years ago. Banking isn't comparable, journalism isn't comparable, and even my children have grown up, although sometimes I doubt that. So what I'm going to do, even though I'm uniquely unqualified to do this, is to give 10 pieces of advice from my career to you, the few students that are here, and the parents and the alumni. If they have children, maybe it's of interest to them, and the alumni one day may have children, or maybe they're still at the beginning of their career, and it may be useful to them as well. And I should say that my experiences are not that necessarily relevant for other people here. I've been quite fortunate. I went to a very good private school in the United Kingdom, Aberforth. I think Jerónimo went there as well. Maybe some other people went there for a year or two, which is a great school. And although I didn't have many financial advantages, both my parents were well-known writers, which opened a lot of doors in my life that might not have been open for other people. So my first lesson is, don't worry if you have no idea what you are going to do, because even if you do have an idea what you're going to do, you're probably going to end up doing something very different. So in my case, as Nicolas said, I studied philosophy and politics at university, and then I did a master's in public administration, and I was absolutely set on being a civil servant in the UK government. That's what I wanted to do, and that's why I did public administration. And when I was at Harvard in the summer, I couldn't get a summer job in the United States, so I didn't have a visa, and I couldn't get a summer job in the UK civil service, they didn't offer them. And a friend of mine's father, I bumped into him, and he said, well, why don't you work at The Economist? I'd never written a single story, even for the school newspaper, let alone for a university newspaper. And I took it because I had nothing else to do. And on more or less on my first day at The Economist, the Berlin Wall was falling. And I proposed to write an editorial on how West Germany was going to take over East Germany, and it was going to be akin to a hostile takeover in the stock market, and they were going to impose their efficient Germanic ways on East Germany, and it was going to be a big success unification. And they liked the idea. They asked me to write it. I wrote it, and as a result of that, I got to write a few other pieces, and I got offered a summer job at The Economist, and I got offered a full-time job at The Economist after the summer. So I became a journalist having never thought that I would be one. What I would say is, even though you don't know what you're going to do, or you shouldn't know what you want to do, you should focus on a few core skills. I think it's really useful if you learn how to write well at university or after university, because especially in this day and age of email and everything else, so much communication is done through writing. I think it's really useful if you're numerate and comfortable with numbers. And I think it's really useful if you know how to be logical and you know how to reason. Frankly, and I'm obviously biased because I studied it, but I think philosophy is the most useful degree you can find. And I'm probably the only person who thinks that. But the reason for that is if you're crossing a bridge and you're not sure if the bridge is well built or not, what you really want is that the engineer who built the bridge to be an engineer who's robust and logical and accurate in his calculations. The same could be said of any other career, including banking. So here, if you study philosophy, you'll recognize the syllogism, all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is immortal. And then you'll see Woody Allen's take on that, and that is, all men are mortal, Socrates was mortal, therefore all men are Socrates. And if you can spot the fallacy in the Woody Allen syllogism, you're ready to get a job in an investment bank. So the second lesson that I would entertain to give you is to what is the second lesson? Luckily, my wife went shopping and gave me a piece of paper. Okay, the second lesson is you never know where opportunities are going to come from. And this is really, really important. When I was at The Economist, I was asked to go to Mexico because they couldn't find anyone else to go to Mexico just for a week. I was happily living in London, and write a story about President Salinas. And I went to Mexico, met lots of people, made a lot of friends actually in a very short period of time, most of whom curiously remain my close friends in Mexico. And I went back very excited by Mexico, but thinking I wouldn't return. I wrote my story, which was quite a positive story. You can look it up on the internet if you're interested. And then a friend of mine in London asked me to play tennis, and my doubles partner, who I didn't know, happened to be the foreign editor of the Financial Times. And then we started talking about Mexico, and he said, you know what, the Mexico position at the Financial Times, which is a sister publication, is open. Are you interested in interviewing for it? And I said, sure, I'll interview for it. So my permanent move to Mexico came from a tennis game. I also recommend tennis as a way of getting ahead. But I would say that you never know when job offers are going to come, when your life is going to change. You just have to be open-minded and curious. At UBS, I offered a job to actually an ASF alumni, Thomas Lajou. I don't know if anyone knows him. He was dressed up as a prostitute in a prostitute and nun party. And he struck me as rather intelligent and gifted, so I arranged to interview him and gave him a job. So you can even be dressed up in an inappropriate fashion and find that you get a job. So I'll move on to my third lesson, which is bluff, take risks, go out of your comfort zone. So when I went to interview with the editor of the Financial Times, a very distinguished guy called Sir Geoffrey Owen, for the job, I knew I had one particular weakness with respect to getting this job as the FT correspondent, which is that one of the requisites was fluent Spanish, and I didn't speak a word of Spanish. But I went for the interview anyway, and I was prepared for the question. And so Geoffrey, halfway through, said, so Damien, how's your Spanish? And I looked at him straight in the eyes, and I said, Sir Geoffrey, if you want, we can continue this interview in Spanish. He said, oh no, that won't be necessary. So bluff, go out of your comfort zone. I then moved to Mexico and got a job and got a job in a country that I didn't know, in a language that I didn't speak, and spent a few weeks in Cuernavaca and learned the Spanish that sadly I still have. So moving on to my fourth lesson, which is something that probably is not going to apply to many of you, but I thought I would give it anyway, which is what does journalism teach you in other professions? Why is it worthwhile being a journalist, even if you're not going to stay as a journalist? I think journalism is really useful in teaching you to adapt. When I was a journalist, I got to cover coup d'etat in Venezuela, I got to cover civil war in El Salvador, I got to cover interest rate policy at some moment in the United Kingdom. As I mentioned, Colosio assassination, the Chiapas rebellion. Every day, things were changing, and you learn how to adapt, and that's really useful skill to have, because nothing really phases you. When Colosio was assassinated, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Mexico time, it was midnight in London, and I had to write a story in half an hour not knowing what had happened. When you've gone through that experience, and it's going to be on the front page of a paper, you remain relatively calm under pressure thereafter. You also learn how to write, and what I would say is that's a really useful skill. You learn how to use short words, you learn how to use the active, you learn that most people aren't going to read beyond paragraph 3, so if you have something relevant to say, make sure it's in the first 2 paragraphs. You learn not to take things too seriously, because most people are very bored by what you have to say anyway, so try and crack a joke if you can. And you learn that many people lie to you, and that's really useful. People lie to you to protect their reputations, to inflate their egos, because they have something to hide. And that's really useful if you're a banker, knowing that people lie to you, because then you don't lend them money. And And I feel that I'm maybe somewhat more skeptical than some of my banking peers that haven't gone through that experience. So I arrived in Mexico and moved into an apartment in Polanco, Parque Lincoln, learned a bit of Spanish. And I quickly realized that I had to adapt to the Mexican culture. And that's my next lesson. I think maybe we're on my 5th at this point. And I learned that there were actually a lot of differences between Mexico and the United Kingdom. We all think because we went to the same universities and around the world that we're all the same, but actually we're not. So the first difference is Mexicans, in my opinion, and apologies for these massive generalizations, but Mexicans are not afraid of violence. They're not afraid of drug wars. You know, they're not that afraid of reckless driving. And they're not afraid of drunken reckless driving. What Mexicans are really afraid of is silence. And you notice that when you go to the Mexican countryside and everyone has a radio on. But you also notice that when Mexicans become really, really rich, which occasionally happens, the first thing they do is they build a huge house next to another rich Mexican, whether it's Punta Ixtapa or Bosques de Santa Fe. When an English person gets really rich, he builds a castle really far away from other people. So whenever I go to England, I'm struck by how silent it is, and whenever I come back to Mexico, I'm struck by how noisy it is. So you have to deal with that. Second is hygiene. Mexicans are very hygienic, and British people are not. I don't know if you've noticed, but when in my office, in the office in Mexico, everyone is all the time brushing their teeth. I have never, ever seen a British person brush their teeth outside their home. This means that Mexicans have wonderful teeth, although they don't get maybe that much work done. And English, as you all know, have terrible teeth. A third difference, which is a cliche, but it's true, is spontaneity versus predictability. I often ask, when I go back to England, what Mexico's like, and I like to say, one of my lines is that in Mexico, when you wake up in the morning, you have absolutely no idea how your day is going to be. And I think that's pretty cool. I like it. And I look at this face of absolute horror on the English people, saying, how can you live in a country like that? So that's a very important difference. Competition versus generosity. The English are obsessively competitive with everything. An Englishman, if you're playing tennis with him, he'd rather win the game and lose the friendship. Where a Mexican would obviously rather maintain the friendship and lose the game. In schools, as my children know, it's why they left England, there's an obsession with getting into a good university and taking 15 GCSEs and 7 A-levels and getting A's in everything, and that's all the parents ever talk about. And based on my children, at least, that's not the case in Mexico. Much more relaxed and laid back, and maybe that's why Mexico doesn't do so well in the Olympic Games. And then finally, time. In Mexico, obviously, we enjoy taking our time doing things, and that's wonderful. But we don't have a sense of things ending. So when I got married to Paloma, there was a cocktail party in London before our marriage. It said 7 to 9. And all the Mexicans thought that the party was starting 7 minutes before 9. And that's when they arrived, just as the party was ending. So I'm going to go on to my 6th lesson here, which is actually a little bit different to the previous one, which is be authentic. You have to adapt and be authentic, which is a complicated combination to pull off. But there's obviously something very annoying about a foreigner who comes to Mexico and complains about the lack of punctuality, the informality, the chaos, the disorder, and so on. That person should obviously leave. Stand up if you're one of them. But there's something also really annoying, I think at least, about a foreigner, a British person especially, who arrives an hour and a half late for lunch, who tells the same story over and over again at dinner, who's always brushing his teeth in the office. People expect you to remain some of your Britishness even as you adapt. And although we're talking about changing lanes, really what we're talking about is merging lanes. You don't give up your Britishness if you come to Mexico. You bring it to a new personality, which is a merger or a fusion of these two worlds. And I think that's important, that you don't lose touch with your past, with your own country, and with people that remembered you when you were young and handsome, if you were. So be authentic, be yourself, and you'll be better off. So I went back after 4 years at the Financial Times. They had a policy that you had to return to home country, otherwise they were worried that you would marry the natives. In my case, I'd already married a native, so it was too late. But I went back to England to work on the Lex column of the FT. But my wife, who's somewhere over here, didn't like England. She didn't like the predictability, the punctuality, the obsessive competitiveness with everything. And as it happened, I'd had a job offer to come back to Mexico to work for a bank. So I thought I'd give it a shot. I knew basically after 3 weeks of English weather that I either had to change wife or change job, and it was easier to change job at that moment at least. So I came back, and I was completely miserable. I have to say, my next lesson, which I think is number 7, just 3 to go, the next lesson is, if you change careers, which I did, you have to be patient. You're not going to go from the same level that you were in your previous career to your new career. I was about 33. I had interviewed presidents and guerrilla leaders and traveled the world and knew lots of important people. And I was put in a cubicle next to 23-year-olds, 10 years younger than me, and was churning out Excel forecasts for corporate earnings, which I knew nothing about at all. And it took me some time to learn how to do it. I was very unhappy while I did it. But in the end, I learned how to do it. As Nicholas said, I took a CFA, I worked at nights, and I was able to kind of gradually work up the corporate ladder and shift jobs to something that was more suitable to my skill level. So be patient. Don't think it's going to happen don't think it's going to be easy. Don't give up. But if you want to explore another profession, I certainly would recommend that you do it. So there's my new self. Unfortunately, I'm not paid in Swiss francs. I'm paid in Mexican pesos. So the next one is how I have really done something which is quite unusual, which is I have worked 18 years consecutively for an investment bank. I think I'm the only person who's actually achieved that in this country. I've gone through a number of different crises, 98 crisis, 2001 crisis, 2008, and maybe the 2016 crisis. And so what are my lessons? My lessons are completely the opposite to what Alex was talking about. I'm obviously a banker, so we represent two different ends of the spectrum. My first, which means Alex clearly wouldn't get a job with us, is dress smartly. And shave, because people think that you're hardworking and serious-minded if you dress well, and make a special effort if you're hungover, so they don't know what you did the previous night. My next lesson, if it's a lesson with respect to how to survive 18 years, is work really hard and stand out. I'm amazed. I actually have never seen someone survive years at an investment bank if they're not willing to work harder than average. Don't be shy when the chairman of the bank worldwide comes to Mexico and there's a town hall. Be the one that asks the question. Prepare. Be a little bit aggressive. Stand out. Because it's tough out there, and you have to be the one that people remember. And then I would say. Finally, get very lucky, because I've seen some of the most amazing people being exited because of mistakes that have been made. I would ninth lesson, and I'll be really short on this one, is I think banking is a good career for certain personality types. Even though banking Woody Allen once defined a stockbroker as someone who invests your money until you have none left. And if you saw that movie, The Big Short, you probably would agree with that. But we do a lot of important and good things. We raise money for companies. Those companies use that money to grow, to invest. So at UBS, I've worked on the IPO of Volaris, which helped, along with Interjet and Viva, transform the aviation industry. We worked on the IPO of Santander Mexico, which gave money for it to grow its loan book, and so on and so on. So we do some useful things despite everything that you read. Banking is very meritocratic and very globalized. A banker in Mexico does exactly the same thing as a banker in Australia, New York, or London. So you are competing and working with and being complementary with some of the smartest people in the world. And there are not that many jobs that offer that. And in short, I would say in banking, you were paid to think. You were paid to be creative financially, if that's not an oxymoron. And you are paid to add value to corporates, which in turn provide jobs and make the country a better place. So that's my ad, and I'm happy to take business cards in the cocktail party if I... Finally, I would say help people. There's a really good book by this guy called Adam Grant, which is giving the secret to staying ahead. And the argument of Adam, which there was also a New York Times Magazine piece about it, is you should basically do favors for everyone, and good karma will come back to you and make you a happier and more productive and more successful person. So if people ask, send you emails, reply to them. If people ask for meetings, give them. And if they're ASF alumni ask you to give a talk, even if you don't have anything to say yes, because maybe something good will come of it. So that's what I have to say. 15 minutes is almost exactly up. Change jobs, change careers, change countries, have fun, enjoy yourselves, work hard, and everything will be great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. That was great. Do you have thanks. This wraps up tonight's events, the talks. You're about to be able to go what you really came for, which is the food and drinks. Before that, just want to make a final recognition. So if all the speakers can come on stage, please. And if the Alumni Council can come on stage as well, please. We'll wait for the council to come down. The entrepreneur is figuring out his new business venture. He'll be here in a second. If the council could come on stage. Come on, guys. While this is happening, I'll let you know, there's a lot of ways you can contact the school and the Alumni Council. We have a Facebook page. It's called All ASF. Maria Jose, is that correct? Yep. ALL ASF Facebook page. You can also call the school, ask to speak to the Institutional Advancement Office. And what we really want is for people to submit projects. We have a network of people we reach out, but we're somewhat limited to 5, 10 plus minus years. And we really want to showcase alums from all different ages and age groups. So please submit the projects if you know. Please contact us if you want to get involved. We'd love to have you. So to finish it off, Sergio, how do they do it in the theater when they finish? Everybody grabs hands? Yeah? Grabs hands? And thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Thanks.